This is part 21 in my series of videos on how weird the Marvel Universe would be if John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1946. An alien invasion in 1962 has left the surface world weak, which makes Attuma, an exiled Atlantean warlord, think now is a good time to strike against them. But he needs allies. Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe 1 says Atlantis was destroyed in 1958, and 3 years later, the Maritanus colony was destroyed by atomic testing. But in real life, there was no atomic testing in the Pacific in 1961. There was atomic testing in 62. This latest alien attack was focused on the 15 most populous cities on Earth and had no effect on atomic testing, so Maritanus is still destroyed. Namora and Namorita arrive at Lemuria to find Attuma politicking with Prince Marrow. Technically not the leader, his father Naga is still alive, though senile without his crown. Attuma hasn't been quiet about his plans, and many Lemurians agree with him. So even though Marrow doesn't like or trust Attuma, if he says no, he may have an uprising on his hands, and his people will join Attuma anyway. Attuma holds Namora as a political hostage. The current ruler of Atlantis, Prince Beera, might behave when he finds out Attuma has Namora. While Beera has no love for the surface world, he doesn't believe his people will survive a mass attack on their enemies. Even if Beera could keep his soldiers out of the attack, he fears the humans would go scorched earth in retaliation, even if the Atlanteans didn't have anything to do with it. There's only one way to save the day. He sends General Krang to the Arctic to find Namor's son, who might be able to rally the scattered water breathers against Attuma. In the 2007 Submariner series, we find out Namor had a kid, Kamar. Namor sent Zoran away to protect Kamar from those who killed Kamar's mom. Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe A to Z 8 suggests Kamar could have been born around 1955, but that doesn't sound very concrete. I speculate Kamar was born either shortly before Namor was banished from Atlantis in 1945 or after his banishment was rescinded in 47. We are told terrorists killed Kamar's mother, but since they were never caught, how do we know that? What if the killer was working with Morano, the Atlantean scientist who worked with the Nazis and was banished by Namor in 41? If Kamar's mom was killed in 45, it could have been Nazis seeking revenge against Namor. This seems much less likely if Kamar was conceived in 55, over a decade after Namor made enemies out of Marano and the Nazis. In 61, Beera commissioned exiled Atlantean scientist Vera to create Mako, a super soldier to defend Atlantis. She's still young, not strong enough to fulfill her mission, but Vera tells Krang to take her with him. If Attuma sends his thugs to watch over us, I don't want him getting Mako or the technology to create more like her. In the Arctic, Zoran has been poisoning Kamar's head with lies about Namor, unaware Namor has been missing for a few years. Krang says, "Your king needs you, son," but Zoran tries to intervene. It'd be very difficult for him to be the de facto ruler with Kamar as his puppet if someone else takes Kamar away from him. Krang kills Zoran in a duel and calls on the precious few soldiers at this outpost to follow their rightful king back home so they can prevent a war. Unfortunately, Attuma suspected Beera would try something, so he had Krang followed by Marano, who on Earth 616 occasionally worked with Attuma. Marano has genetically augmented himself to be stronger than the average Atlantean, and he could easily tear through this group of soldiers, if not for Mako. She's still young and isn't as strong as Marano, but she is strong enough to at least hold him back long enough for Krang to get Kamar to safety. Krang knows he can't make it back to Beera. They've got a long trip, and Marano will catch up to them. He hates what he has to do, but he orders the rest of the soldiers from the Arctic settlement to return to Beera. If he's lucky, Marano will chase the soldiers, giving Krang enough time to get Kamar to safety. We don't know where Kamar was raised, just that it was somewhere in the Arctic. I suspect it was around here, the border of pre-sunken Atlantis. They weren't too far away from Kamar's home when Marano attacked, and if Krang's priority is to hide Kamar, you'd think he would head straight for Europe, away from Attuma's realm. But Krang takes a major gamble and hopes that Attuma and Marano will think that's what he will do, and he does the unexpected. He and Kamar pass Attuma's kingdom, heading for the United States. Krang isn't too fond of the surface dwellers. If their numbers hadn't been depleted by recent atomic testing, he might have agreed with Attuma's plans. But if he wants to prevent a war that will wipe out his people, he needs to warn the surface dwellers what Attuma is planning. And Attuma is not quite ready to mount an attack yet, so Kamar should be safe on land. It isn't too difficult for a guy who looks like Krang to find his audience. He warns the military, and they warn Stark Industries, which has been heading up the space defense program since the invasion. While this threat doesn't come from space, since Tony's been backwards engineering alien tech when he's not swapping places with a Kree soldier in the negative zone, they might be the best defense against Attuma. We're not ready to put people in space yet, but Stark is thinking ahead and wants to do psych profiles to find their pilots. One potential candidate, Colonel John Jameson, and Stark's head of security, Carol Danvers, get wrapped into our narrative. This is tricky because starting in the 80s, writers began adding to Carol's backstory, saying she had been in the Air Force, had done missions with Ben Grimm and Logan, under the sliding timeline, saying this happened roughly a decade or a little more ago. But I'm ditching the sliding timeline in this alternate universe, and in real life, when women were not allowed to fly in the Air Force until 1977. But I like to think an exception was made for Carol. She doesn't take no easily. When her dad said he would only pay for her brother to go to college, she put herself through college. While she may not have publicly been part of the Air Force, with various weird superhuman activities going on since the 40s, mayhap the government took a look at this woman making a fuss, and they put her in some very covert missions, where she met Michael Rossi. So she was fast-tracked to security chief at Stark Industries, which is important. Planetary safety is at stake, but she's still mad she's not out in the action. But then comes the call from above. We did some recon. This blue guy seems to be telling the truth. We've got incoming movement. Marino contacted Attuma. Crane got away. Attuma says he must be warning the surface people of our plans, and Attuma figures he can still succeed if he moves up his timetable. Carol tells her supervisors, I've been watching these eggheads play with this tech. Other than Tony Stark, where is he anyway? I'm the best person you have for this mission. They reluctantly send her and Jameson along with some pilots who will man regular non-sci-fi tech equipped planes. Most of the aircraft are shot down, but they're able to scare Atuma's army enough to force a retreat, but not before they take a couple of prisoners, Jameson and Danvers. In Bizarre Adventures 27, Jean and Sarah Gray are kidnapped by Attuma, and his scientists alter their genes so they can breathe underwater. We're not told who Atuma's scientists are, but I suspect they were disciples to Vera, the man responsible for Mako. While this is genetic modification, and Vera's specialty was cloning, you have to be an expert on biology before you can replicate it. Atuma's forcefully recruited these scientists and put Jameson and Danvers through the same process. Rescue comes from the army of Neptunia, allies with Atlantis since the 1940s. They grab the prisoners, including Namora and Namorita, and get out. Vera says if they can find Vera, he might be able to reverse what was done to Carol and John, but for now, they're stuck. John says we're in a unique position to try to forge a relationship between cultures. Word is quickly spreading about the long-lost prince. He may be a real piece of work.
I hate you! You're only here because Mom says it's our Christian duty.
Raised by a power-hungry traitor, but seeing what the humans did to his father's city by accident, Kmart doesn't want to see what they could do on purpose. He begins his reign by extending a hand to the surface dwellers, and as long as Jameson and Danvers are trapped underwater, it's in their best interest to convince their superiors to treat the Atlanteans nicely. That's all I have today. I say this every time, but I enjoyed making this, and I hope you folks enjoyed watching it. I've got plenty of others you can see in my If I Wrote playlist down at the bottom, and I hope to have some more videos in this series in the future. Until next time, have a good one.